programs come back year after year after year, not unlike folks that happen to work on the Zaandam. I know there's a common theme in the U.S. program that you go to Antarctica the first time for the adventure, you go the second time for the money, which is a little oxymoron because the pay rates aren't that great, but you don't have that much to spend it on. And you go the third time because you don't fit in anywhere else. And we won't go into what that means about some of us that have been a few more than 3 times. The typical work week for the contract staff in the U.S. program is they work 6 9-hour days. Actually, they're contracted to work 6 9-hour days. Many of them work a lot more than that. And when you ask them where they live, they'll pause and go, you mean where my storage unit is? Because they spend so much time in Antarctica. And because of that, it's important to have some alternatives for them, some recreational activities for them. And each of the stations have a gymnasium, a weight room, a bar, a library. Kind of sounds like the Zaandam, doesn't it? And I want to talk about some of those kinds of activities that take place. These guys are headed somewhere, I'm not sure where. This is an image of McMurdo Station. McMurdo opens for the austral summer season in early October. And the first major social event is the Halloween party. Now I want you guys to all picture that you're working at McMurdo and you're getting ready to go to the Halloween party, and there's no costume store down the street, so you have to be creative with your costumes. You either brought something along with you if you've been there before. You may have an Antarctic themed costume, and there is judging at the Halloween party. This is the gym at McMurdo set up for Halloween party. I'm not sure what these costumes are, but I think these were made out of weather balloons. As I said, you gotta be creative now, so. And you never know who might show up at the Halloween party. You might recognize this guy here. And I could tell you exactly who these 3 individuals were, but actually I've been sworn to secrecy, so I can't reveal the names of these Navy officers. Now during the judging, I was a judge 1 year at the Halloween party, and we had finished judging, we had completed making our selections and made the awards, and the door opened and the village people came in, and the DJ put YMCA on the sound system, and I pulled the judges aside and I said, we have to give these guys a special honorable mention award, otherwise we're not going to get out of the party. So we did that. Here's a guy who was on the way to the party again in early November, and I guess he lost his way, he couldn't find the gym. Yeah, like I said, creative. Why would this gentleman bring a pink tutu? Oh, it's probably the only place you could ever wear that, right? Now, after Halloween, the next big couple holidays are Thanksgiving and Christmas. Now, those are not from the U.S., may not be aware of that big Thanksgiving holiday, which takes place on, I think, the 3rd Thursday of November. In the Antarctic program on the U.S. side, we changed that. We actually moved Thanksgiving to Saturday. So we can have a 2-day holiday of Saturday and Sunday. In most cases, we have Sundays off. We don't move Christmas, however, to the weekend. Thanksgiving, obviously the big event is having your big dinner. And just like at home, you invite as many people as possible. So at McMurdo, we invite all our neighbors. Scott Base, the New Zealand station, is about 3 miles away from McMurdo. They have no idea what Thanksgiving means, but they come over for Thanksgiving dinner because they get invited. So you have about 1,100 people. Now you guys are at McMurdo, you've been working there, and of course you appreciate how hardworking all the folks are in the kitchen, just like here in the Zaandam. So on Thanksgiving, you volunteer to help, right? There's also kind of a strange sense of humor sometimes at McMurdo. We don't have mac and cheese for Thanksgiving dinner. So at McMurdo we have, much like the Lido, we have a buffet style, and you're in there, you're helping back in the kitchen. We serve 3 seatings like in the fancy restaurant here. You have an assigned time to sit. And that's just for the Thanksgiving and Christmas meals. Give you an idea what we're talking about. You have 1,250 pounds of turkey, about 65 turkeys, 240 pounds of prime rib, 270 pounds of potatoes and root vegetables, 250 pounds of asparagus, 2,000 dinner rolls, 50 pumpkin pies, 40 pecan pies, 40 apple pies, and a few other goodies for dessert. And that's the buffet line all set up, ready to go. Now you've been in the back helping, and your job is to prepare the mashed potatoes. So you get to peel 1,500 potatoes. Please, pick up the pace. We don't want to be late with the mashed potatoes. You volunteered for this job, right? That's the dessert line. Many years ago, I also volunteered to work in the kitchen, and I got assigned the dessert bar. And they assigned a young lady to help me, i.e. keep me from screwing it up too badly. And as we were serving, we had a nice big chocolate torte cake, and it was on a nice platter, but the replacement cakes were just on a plastic tray. And once that cake was done, I had to bring the next one out, and of course I just brought the plastic tray up and jerked it like this, and the new cake slid right onto the nice presentation platter. And the young lady looked at me and she said, "You don't need my help, do you?" So I wound up working the dessert bar, actually for a number of years. Lots of fun. Interesting, both my daughters worked at a place called Mom's Apple Pie. Apple pie. Okay, now everybody from the United States knows what else happens besides gorging yourself with a great meal on Thanksgiving. You have a football game, right? Well, we have a football game, and it's of course called the Penguin Bowl, played on the ice and snow out by the airfield every year. Now, at a good football game, you have to have halftime entertainment, right? So we have the famous or infamous McMurdo Bunny Boot Marching Band. These big white insulated cold weather boots that you get issued are nicknamed Bunny Boots. So the band shows up. Here they are performing at halftime out at the football field / airfield. And of course, what else do you have to have at a football game? Cheerleaders. Okay, guys, it's co-ed. You can also volunteer to be a cheerleader. So there's the cheerleaders, and they have this very, very stylish bubble wrap uniform. And there's a few beverages in there. Well, not to be outdone, the folks at South Pole also have a football game played there. And it's probably about -25 when they're playing their game at pole. And they call theirs the pole bowl, not too original. And Christmas is coming. We have a newspaper at McMurdo, and it used to be called the McMurdo Sometimes, because sometimes it came out, and yeah, you got it. Now it's called the McMurdo Sun Times, but this is kind of a little bit of an inside humor joke. A couple of guys saying, "Who's this guy?" I'd say he's, by his red jacket, that he's one of the newly arriving science guys. The science folks get issued a red parka, so that's the Santa joke. The seasons I was there for Christmas, and that was lots over the years, it was one of those few times that I exercised authority being the senior person there, and I got to wear the suit. And it was really great because what we would do is the day or before Christmas, we would schedule a helicopter flight known as the sleigh ride, and we would go out to as many of the sites that we could reach in the McMurdo area, delivering mail, fresh produce, cookies, you know, and Santa would take those out to, that would be an all-day-long flight. And one of the fun parts of it is Santa would get to take some elves along from the community. And what I would do is try to find folks that had been working in the program for a number of years, doing a good job, and maybe their job was one of these things that they never really got out of town. And I remember one year I was sitting in the mandatory safety training class before you could fly on a helicopter. And there was a woman there who said, "I've wintered over," she worked in the weather office, she said, "I've wintered over 7 times, and I've never been on a helicopter." She got an email from Santa the next day, and she got to be one of Santa's elves going out to visit the stations. Lots and lots of fun. I took a guy from the Air Force, and he didn't fly planes. He was one of the maintenance guys who never got to fly on the planes, but he kept them flying. And he never stopped smiling the entire time he was there. Now on New Year's, we have another event that is called, and it's a concert. Now I know most of the folks in this audience know what Woodstock is. Yeah, well, we do ice stock. And actually this is the second year. The first year ice stock was in 1989. Made up of groups, we don't bring any musicians in. It's individuals in the community. And sometimes you'll have, just like here on the Zaandam, some of the musicians are in 2 or 3 different bands depending upon what their requirements are. We'll have country and western, we'll have hard rock, we've had a harmonica group, we've had a cappella singers, and it goes on for 6 or 7 hours with different bands of music on New Year's Day. I think this is the same guy that got lost trying to get to the Halloween party. That's Mount Erebus in the background, so he's a bit far away from the party. But just like any concert, but this one's outside, outdoors, right in the middle of town, New Year's Day, so it's usually pretty warm there. Could be in the low 40s. The crowd gathers. Just like any good concert, they're groupies. And how this fur coat got to McMurdo, I have no idea. I've seen it several different years. It seems to get passed from hand to hand. That's the stage, pretty basic flatbed trailer truck. And that's an old Jamesway they use. It's a bit challenging for the musicians, particularly the ones that are in a couple bands, because after 4 or 5 hours outside, even when it's maybe 40, your hands get pretty cold. If you know the right people, you can get box seats. some couches taken out of one of the dormitory buildings at McMurdo, set up on a trailer. So that's the special box seats. You've got to have the connections to get those. Of course, the Bunny Boot Marching Band has to make a special guest appearance at the concert. Goes on all day long, and it is New Year's Day, and I don't know who this person is, but I'm quite certain he came from Scott Base. That's not somebody from the U.S. program. Any New Zealanders in the room? Some of you may have heard in the last year there was some news about this heavy metal rock band called Metallica that claimed they were doing the first concert in Antarctica. This is the response from McMurdo on the 25th year of ice dock. They didn't particularly care for that. In addition, it's kind of do a lot of PR for where I don't know why they have to do it. Where else are you going to go at McMurdo on New Year's Day except for the ice dock? Live music. And they also have a chili cook-off contest. Anybody here been in a chili cook-off? All right, we do one at McMurdo every year. It's an annual event, and of course, like any good chili cook-off, you guard your recipe. It is a little tough to get special ingredients for your chili. Usually there are 8 to 10 different teams, and they have official judging, and then after the judging, the community gets to share samples. They're all set up around where the concert is. This is the team from the medical department at McMurdo. I'm not sure what they're stirring their chili with, and I'm not sure I want to know what they were stirring. I have another picture, but my wife took it out of the presentation, of the janitorial staff. And they serve their chili out of a toilet bowl. And their team name was the Critters from the, and you can figure out the rest of it. Judging, I learned a lesson fairly early in management. It's called delegate. I got somebody else to take my place as the judge for the contest. Most of the chili was very hot and not just temperature-wise. Now this is a completely different event that occurs in Antarctica, and it is unique to Antarctica. This is a celebration that takes place in June. June 21st is Midwinter's Day. And you can tell how far back that celebration goes. This is Scott's party celebrating midwinter. That's a special day for those that spend the winter in Antarctica, because that's the day the sun starts its journey back. You still have months and months of darkness, but at least you know it's coming back the right direction. This is actually Midwinter's Day at Little America, which is a station that was set up during the International Geophysical Year in 56, 57 on the Ross Ice Shelf. The station's not there any longer, but you can see the Navy guys actually brought their dress uniforms with them specifically for Midwinter's Day. This is a shot, an old picture of South Pole Station in 1977, Midwinter's Day. You may wonder, well, that's the U.S. station at South Pole. What's this flag doing there? A Russian flag. This gentleman in the middle is a Russian exchange scientist. During those years, we had a U.S. scientist at one of the Soviet stations and a Soviet scientist, a Russian scientist, at one of the U.S. stations, all during the winter, all year long. So that occurred. McMurdo, no, this is not the Rotterdam. They have a pretty fancy formal dinner, complete with all the fixings for midwinters. Not quite as large as the Thanksgiving dinner, because the number of people here in the winter is probably around 200. So they can all get in the dining hall at one time. One of the other fun features that occurs at most of the stations, this happens to be a picture at Davis Station, Australian station, and I think it may not have actually occurred at midwinters, but you take the polar plunge. I think we're going to do that on the ship, but it's in the swimming pool. Also, there's always an exchange of messages between the stations. This is before internet, and so this is a message actually from South Pole Station to all the other Antarctic stations, and wishing them your day be sunny and bright. Sense of humor in Antarctica. Also, a long-standing tradition in the U.S. is a midwinter's message from the White House. And this doesn't go to just the U.S. stations. It goes to all the stations operating in Antarctica. This happens to be one from Jimmy Carter. But every year there's a midwinter's message that comes from the White House. Nowadays, it's much easier to exchange messages, and all the stations exchange messages. But they tend to be a lot fancier. This is a shot from South Pole in 2011. Taking that picture is a bit of a challenge, because you get the whole crew gathered outside and you have to say, please hold your breath. Otherwise, and they usually have to do it about 4 or 5 times before they don't have some cloud of somebody who couldn't hold the breath long enough, and you get the fog in front of the picture. This is a midwinter picture from McMurdo Station, midwinter's greeting from 2013. They must have climbed up Observation Hill, and took that shot of the station. Midwinter shot from Palmer Station, where we were earlier during the cruise. This is from Bellingshausen, our Russian station on King George Island. This is in Maxwell Bay. We were in Admiralty Bay, but the next bay down is where Bellingshausen is. So it's a fairly common thing. Now, if you winter over at South Pole, you get to participate in a very special event. When you're watching the temperatures at Pole, and this is the old station in the weather office, and they're looking at when the temperature drops to minus 100 degrees Fahrenheit without wind chill. And remember, the record low at South Pole is minus 117, so a few days during the winter they'll get below minus 100. And they turn the sauna on the station up to 200 degrees. And if you wish to, you get to join a very select group of people who are in the 300 degree club. You go from the sauna, you run outside around the geographic South Pole and back into the station. And you get to wear boots. And that's all. So that's a unique event. And usually during the course of the winter, almost everybody on the station joins the 300 degree club. And they have never reported any serious injuries. Not that they would. Now, a couple other interesting odds and ends that occur. A couple years ago, Guy Guthridge sent me some artists and writers to McMurdo, and he's going to talk about that program a little bit. And they wanted, obviously, to take pictures of emperor penguins. Well, that was a year that the emperor penguin rookery at Cape Crozier on the end of the island, Ross Island, because of ice conditions, there were very few emperor penguins there, almost none. So we had to go and find another location. We were able to fly out past the end of Ross Island to Beaufort Island, and there was a emperor penguin rookery there. Give you a sense of scale, that's a UH-1 helicopter. So the size of those icebergs that we saw during our cruise, just a wee bit smaller than this one. And we were able to find the penguin rookery. Now, if some of you saw the penguins on the Falklands, you recognize they're not afraid of human beings. So the birds are there, they all have chicks. The rules were that the folks that came out to see them could not get into the area close to the birds because we did not want to have any disturbance for the chicks. And those were the requirements under the Antarctic Treaty. You can't disturb those animals. And just to ensure that the artist did not get too close, the Antarctic Conservation Act enforcement officer who carries a badge went with them. That would have been me. But these guys came over to greet us, check us out, make sure everything was on the up and up, asked to see our permit. And during the course of the time we were there, one of the artists, who was a painter, and he would make sketches, and he put his notebook down, and I was able to get this picture, which I titled. And yes, all those marks on the snow are exactly what you think they are. And after a while, this guy came over and just said, okay, you can go now, we're done. And we left, and I don't know, somebody was mixed up as to which way to go. These guys are about 4 feet tall. And again, if you just hold still, you saw those of you that got out to the sites in the Falklands, they'll just come over to you. Now, one of the things we have at McMurdo in the wintertime, it's not that it just recently was taken down, but they have a bowling alley, and it is the world's most southern 10-pin bowling alley. That's a recreational activity. Any bowlers in the audience? Think about trying to bowl on an alley, on a wooden alley, where the humidity is 5%. And the wood is so dry. You have no idea where your ball's going to go. My first year, I arrived at McMurdo in June, flew in, and some guys ran up to me and they didn't say, hi, how are you? Welcome to McMurdo. They ran up and said, can you bowl? And I went, yeah. They said, you're on the team. And they had a league at McMurdo that winter, and the science civilian guys were not in last place in the league, they were next to last, because at that time there's no 10-pin bowling in New Zealand, and there was a New Zealand team from Scott Base, and they would bowl with 2 hands. So we were next to last place. I got put on the team, and the next weekend we had we were bowling against the Navy Chiefs. And I bowled a 208, which on that lane was outstanding. And the Chiefs were convinced that I was a ringer that was brought in just to be on the civilian team that winter. Now, we did not get close enough to Palmer to see this event. This is another kind of unusual recreational event. If you're at Palmer Station and before your ship leaves or as you're pulling away from the dock, one of the traditions is folks from the station jump into the water, and that's to wish you a smooth crossing. So I'm sure somebody must have jumped in the water before we left the area on coming back across the Drake. They do have a very large hypothermia treatment facility where about 12 people can get in it all at the same time. So after you jump off the pier, you go get in the hot tub. Some of that with you. Be glad to take a few questions. We got plenty of time. Yes, sir.
In that one photo there, Christmas card photo, there were red jackets and brown jackets. Red jackets would have been the scientists, which I don't remember.
That was just the photo. Yeah, typically the ratio at the large camps, probably 75% or more of the personnel or the support people and the science community is smaller. Now, when you get out to small remote camps that are set up, the largest percentage of the people are the scientists, and you have a small number of support staff or no support staff, and the scientists are self-supporting in the small tent camps, for example. Yes, sir. Anybody ever do a costume as a polar bear? I don't believe so, but we did have one gentleman come with a weather balloon, and after a while we figured his costume was a condom. As I said, there's sense of humor there. We've had people come in as, you know, Scott's party, you know, dragging a sled into the Halloween party, all kinds of different things. But yeah, it's an interesting community to be in that sense of humor. And rumors are rampant, just like the other day when the rumor was that we left 2 people at the Falkland Islands. We didn't. But it's the same thing. In McMurdo, it's like the little kids game when you get a circle of kids and somebody whispers in the ear and what comes out at the other end. I used to spend a tremendous amount of time just doing rumor control. Yes, ma'am.
Does a plane come in weekly or monthly to bring back food? And is it already prepared, or does it come and you cook it there?
Yeah. As far as McMurdo is concerned, during the austral summer, they have flights from Christchurch, New Zealand, about 2 to 3 times a week. All the food supplies come in, for the most part, comes in once a year on a ship, which would be in late January, early February. So all the dry food, all the frozen food. So think that, you know, if you're working as the chef, the following November, the food that you're pulling out of the freezer has been frozen for a year. Now, we do fly in during the summer, austral summer, what our program calls freshies, fresh produce that are brought down from New Zealand. The Palmer side, the ship comes in about every 4 to 6 weeks, and they'll bring fresh produce from South America. McMurdo and South Pole both have hydroponics facilities that they use during the winter time, so they actually can still have salads and stuff during the winter time for when the station population is smaller. But during the summer, we'll bring in about 5,000 pounds of fresh produce every week by air. Any other questions? Yes, ma'am.
Your hospital situation, what if someone is badly hurt and it's the storm going on? Do you have people there?
Yeah, what's the hospital or medical care situation? It's not unlike what we have on the Zaandam. All the stations have physicians. At the larger stations, they'll have physician assistants. In the summer, austral summertime, there's actually a dentist also at McMurdo. So they're prepared to deal with those kinds of things. Everyone that goes in the program, pretty much all nations, has to go through a fairly extensive medical exam before you get there. So try to screen out problems. And the primary thing, especially in the summer, is if you have a serious medical situation, just like for us, stabilize and transport. The last thing you want to do is to have some major medical problem where you have to do an operation on someone in Antarctica, because the potential for post-op complications. I'll talk a little bit about an example of one of those in a talk this afternoon that did occur. But we have doctors at all the stations, and we try to keep them as unbusy as possible. The single largest thing that occurs as far as accidents at the U.S. programs are slips, trips, and falls. And of course, when you fall, the first thing you do is look around and see if anybody saw you as you're getting up. But yeah, mostly that's it. A little bit of frostbite in the wintertime, but it's not usually a significant problem. But again, we're screening out most of the serious health problems, so those folks are not there. And we can get somebody out of McMurdo, we can get somebody out of Pole in the wintertime if it is a life-threatening situation, and I'll talk a little bit about that this afternoon. Talk.
Sir.
Yes, ma'am.
What is the population
Yeah, in the middle of the summer at McMurdo, there could be about 1,000 to 1,100 people. But with those flights going in and out, we'll have, through the course of the summer, almost 3,000 people come through McMurdo. Everybody that works at Pole comes through McMurdo. Everybody that works at remote locations other than the few in the peninsula all come through McMurdo. Activities in the Antarctic Peninsula come through Punta Arenas, Chile, and come down by ship. So it's but about less than about 80% of the 75 to 80% of the science and activities and people are on the McMurdo side. 20 to 25% are on the Palmer Station side. Yeah.
Do you have any rules or guidelines with regard to married couples or partnerships being deployed?
The contractor has some guidelines. Basically, yeah, there are married couples there. There are couples of every description there, and very, very tolerant society. The main thing is typically, as with any contract, any employment, you don't want to supervise your partner. So if you're there with your partner, they're going to work in a different part of the organization, so there's no direct supervision of a partner like that. But that is allowed, but they have to work. You can't, you know, your significant other is not there just to accompany you on the trip. You have to be employed and work. And there are lots more couples in the program now than there were in the early days, and the average age has gotten older and older, which makes for a better situation because it's a little calmer that way. I'll talk a little bit about some of that this afternoon. Yes, sir. I can't hear you. I'm sorry. Okay. Yeah. What's the time contract? And years ago, folks would sign up for an entire year, so they'd be there summer and then into the winter. Nowadays, pretty much it's folks are there just for the summer period, and then usually a different group of people comes in for the winter. Some folks would rather be there in the summer. Others like it in the winter because you don't have to deal with as much bureaucracy. But it is a little more challenging because if you have problem employees in the wintertime, you can't get rid of them. Where in the summertime, it's not, you're not going to do a lot of counseling for somebody that's not showing up for work. It's just going to be bye. But it's interesting in the workplace, and my observation is in most cases, it usually doesn't have to be dealt with by a supervisor. If you're on a team of 6 carpenters working at McMurdo and one of them tends to not show up for work in a timely manner, the other 5 folks are going to deal with it because they're the ones who got to pick up the workload. So it's usually dealt with peer pressure, usually is brought to bear before a supervisor necessarily has to get involved in it. But all that stuff does happen. One of the things I've always dealt with is the people that are there are really dedicated and want to work. Yeah, they're supposed to work 9-hour day. Many of them work a lot more than that. My routine usually was 14-hour days, 7 days a week. But you can't do that, and if you're so exhausted by January, you're no good to the program. So you kind of have to watch people and rein them in a little bit and say thanks for all your dedication, but slow down a little bit so you're not completely, as we call, toast before the end of the season. Yes, ma'am. What do we do about cabin fever? Yeah. One of the way the stations are designed is you almost have to get outside all the time. And it's one of the things that we really encourage. Say if you were working at McMurdo Station in the dining hall and you were assigned a living quarters, we would probably not assign you into that same building where the dining hall is, so you're forced to go outside. And by observation, the folks that have something in the routine to go outside, they're always have a much better year. There's lots of recreational activities, including those parties, but also there are places you can go for a hike. You have to go 2 people at a time. You have to check out, make sure the weather is good, and then you have to remember to check back in when you get back, or otherwise we start looking for you. There's some places that you can go cross-country skiing that are all set up, so lots of outdoor activities. One of the things that's interesting in the winter time, we have had people who have had difficulties dealing with the total darkness, and that's well documented. Well, you may be encouraged to go volunteer and work in the greenhouse. There are some lounges and stuff that have full spectrum lighting on the stations, but we're going to work in the greenhouse and that nice humidity and the light and the smells really does help if people are having difficulty dealing with it being dark 24 hours a day.